CLG. The note here is CLG are awful.
Why'd you believe in CLG? CLG is just so desperate for anything to work.
They're most likely out of the playoffs.
CLG, just as a whole, is lost.
Kalista could be able to get the run down the barrel. So low, Celtics gets it. Matt able to steal a golden guardian. Gonna try and wipe CLG in the pit. It's such a mess.
A lot of people were like writing CLG off as possibly the worst team in the league. We were tied for last place, and I was like, Jesus Christ, CLG needs to just blow up and remove their entire roster and just change everyone.
They're now tied for last place and are pretty close to being locked into missing their first ever playoff.
It's gonna be a tough road ahead.
I guess there's just this like weird stigma with our team where it's like when no one believes in us, we do really well.
The Raptor's gonna land. It's one versus the world. The Nakabas and the Ace.
It's a game.
And Counter Logic Gaming gonna pull in the impossible comeback. And did you believe it when you believe in them least?
As long as people keep doubting us, we're gonna keep winning.
Chain of corruption right onto the Pugma. He's gonna go down, and that's a double kill for Hoogie.
I mean, now we're 2 games away from possibly making it to playoffs.
I think that we can do it. I think that with the confidence we have and all the wins, you know, they're going to keep stacking on each other, and it's going to be the first time in a long time that we beat TSM. The cherry on top of the cake is that it's when it matters the most.
Let's go. And CLG in last place will knock down the #2 team in NA. CLG are gonna sweep the week, and their hunt for that playoff spot remains strong. It's destroy Echo Fox, making the run a reality. Let's go. 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 Let's go.
Let's go.
Nice job.
Let's
go.
CLG, baby. Let's go. Take player, that's me.
Welcome back to the NALCS Countdown. We've made our way back out to the stage one more time to utilize this big old TV to talk about some junglers here in the North American LCS, the one role that we haven't broken down into a tier list. So here they are, Mark and Jat's jungle tier list for this split.
And our usual reminder at the top, this is based off performance, and this time through the first 8 weeks of the split. And I felt like this one was a little difficult to do. The top 4 was easier than the bottom 6, which is usually it's harder to rank the top.
Yeah.
And it's also one of the more team-dependent roles. Junglers often look very bad if their team is struggling to get priority in lanes.
And recency bias was one thing I had to watch out for a lot, trying to take the entire split into account. So some of those bad weeks early on in the split still matter a lot.
It's a good point, especially when a couple of our top teams are struggling. That said, both of you have Dardoch occupying that #1 position on the list. Let's talk about him.
Yeah, despite the recent struggles that Echo Fox has been facing, Dardoch has been a pretty consistent member for the team, and he is an absolute beast in getting his team leads. He has the highest jungle proximity against him, meaning that his laners generate a lot of pressure. People try and stop their laners from pressuring so hard, and then he does a great job covering them. He also camps their lanes. He gets these huge counter ganks off while invading a lot.
Yeah, and we award OP5 at the end of every week. Dardoch has been the OP jungler 5 times in 8 weeks, so he has been head and shoulders above every other jungler this split.
That's an unreasonable number of OP5s, but second on your list, Jad, is actually Sven Skaren of C9.
Yeah, and a lot of people were wondering whether or not going to C9 could unlock Sven Skaren to play more like he wanted to play, and I think in a lot of ways that is true. He's been invading a lot, still dying, but dying a lot less and in less destructive ways for his team, while generating a lot of pressure. And when you look holistically at C9's early game, they've been very consistently able to get first turret, get a lot of early pressure, have very good objective control, and I think Sven Skaren's a pretty big part of that.
The only thing you can say to detract from him is those kind of deaths that you were mentioning, but he still also has the highest forward percentage of junglers, which basically indicates invades, and so he invades a lot, does a lot for his team, and sometimes gets caught out and punished.
Right, taking risks, sometimes gets punished. That said, you've actually got Meteos occupying the second slot, so give me the differential there.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing that we were just talking about, those isolated deaths that tend to crop up. Meteos has none. He's almost never caught out of position, never in the wrong place, is a huge playmaker for the team, combined with Afromu. The two of them are the reason that 100 Thieves get their early leads more often than not. And recently, as last week, we're seeing that he can go topside if he needs to.
And Jad, let's be honest, this was a guy that people had some concerns about coming into the split, right? Would there be motivation issues? Would he be able to return to form? But we are seeing a bit of a Meteos of old.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, as far as being in safe places, I think the aggression that he would have had back in 2013, taking over games, isn't quite there, but he has played really well.
On the flip side, though, another veteran that we had high expectations for, Xmithy, right? One of the top junglers in 2017, sitting in 4th on your guys' list, so knocked down a peg.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this has to do with inconsistency and him not really finding a consistent lane to get ahead. in a frequent manner because I said consistent a lot.
Right.
But he goes top lane. He doesn't necessarily snowball impact. A lot of times his bottom lane is left unprotected and they die a lot. So it's difficult for xMithy to find those successful cases, but for someone who was so great last split, you would have expected a little bit more, but he's still solidly at 4th.
And that's why, we were talking about this being a very team-centric role. I don't really think Smithy is worse than he was last split, but Immortals had a very clear play style on what they wanted to do. Doesn't feel like the case on Team Liquid, so he hasn't been having the same impact in games.
Another player that's taken a step down from last split to this split is Contracts. As a rookie, he impressed us quite a bit on Cloud9. This time around on Golden Guardians, not as hot. And you guys actually have a little bit of distance between him,
a whopping
even
though
2. Your lists are pretty similar.
This is probably the biggest difference on the list, and it's only 2, so you can see how we kind of aligned on this. But he has not very impressive stats. He tends to fall behind the early game. XP, CSD, goal differential, whatever you want to point at. He doesn't have strong laners, but he also had a lot of deaths early on in the split and was one of the key factors in why they were struggling so much. He's also a key factor in their resurgence, so he deserves his credit for that.
Yeah, and I think even though Contracts has had some bad games, I give him a little bit more credit for having the good games when I don't think his laners have been performing that well. It is incredibly difficult to play jungler from behind. That's, if you think back to last year, why we had Lyris so high on that old Envy team is because a lot of the time his lanes weren't doing well.
The only thing I'd say is that's why the bottom 6 are so difficult, because everyone has something that they do well, like Reignover's jungle pathing is great, but his team fighting is awful, and he has the highest isolated deaths. Everyone in the bottom 6 has these kind of back and forth points.
Now, in Week 9, players are also going to have to deal with the transition to 8.5. This is a patch that brings in a number of changes, so I want to go through some of them now. What are the most notable changes that you guys see?
Swain! Woo! Hey, everybody, we're going to get some Swain. The biggest change, there's a lot with him. Basically, every ability got changed, but the one that is important is this W's radius got increased, so that you can actually land this consistently now, and that's a huge deal, going from 3 abilities to basically 4, especially when it interacts with his passive and other things.
And the fact that he can be played in mid or top lane. There are not that many flex picks that are currently in the meta. Swain is going to be one. Zoe's also back in a lot of ways, which makes banning a very interesting phase. I want to kind of call attention to the double nerf between Warmogs and Cinderhulk here, because last patch, any tank jungler would just go Cinderhulk into Warmogs, hit that health threshold to be able to get the regen from the Warmog's armor, and you can't do that anymore. Not only is Cinderhulk less max health percentage of a buff, but the Warmogs also takes a lot longer to turn on. So there's a chance that that actually completely changes the jungle meta in the long term with more Warrior or Runic Echo junglers, and that'll have some pretty big implications if that happens.
On top of that, Olaf was already seeing play and bans. He gets a small buff, so probably even more playable. We did see some rune changes for the ADC position, but Mark, I know that in the Academy League, we haven't really seen that amount to much.
Yeah, I mean, they generally mirror each other pretty closely, and there wasn't that much increase in press the attack despite the buff.
And good old Cloud Drake. Nice buff. All right, moving on to predictions, though. This time around, we decided to bring in a special guest. Jat was sitting at a 60% prediction rate. Mark, you were at what?
I was like,
not 60, exactly. But we decided to bring in somebody who was at 60% from across the pond. Deficio lent us a hand, giving us predictions. Let's take a look.
Well, well, well. The North American peasants coming to the superior European analysts for help when it comes to predicting their games. Well, I normally only care about Europe, but in this case here, I can predict the North American games easily, and I can help you guys even beat some of these dogs that apparently are better than you guys at predicting games. It's a little bit of a shame, but let me run through the games real quick. Instantly call out who's going to win and get an easy 5 for 5. First, Clutch will win. Second, Echo Fox will win. Third, Team Liquid will win. Fourth, well, there's a bunch of Danes on it, so I gotta pick them. TSM, of course, will win. And the last game is the one I struggle with. This is the tough one, and I think I might need some help, so I'm gonna call my minion here for a second.
Yes, the fish.
Yes. Yes.
That's the fish.
Vedi.
Yes.
Tell me, who do you think will win?
It's Optic, the fish. Optic.
You think Optic?
Optic, the fish.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, leave again.
Okay.
For the last game, I'm going with the CLG, and I'm going to say they will win. And there you go, guys. 5 for 5. The superior analyst here to help you. Enjoy the show.
There you have it. Deficio's picks. How do you guys feel about it?
After 8 weeks, we're at exactly the same percentage.
Well, that's
the point was to beat him.
Yeah, the point was a challenge, not help. We don't need his help. It was that we had beaten all the other challenges you put before us.
All right, well, let's compare what we got then, because if I recall correctly, the two of you have predicted, again, the same 5 teams
right away
to win, and Deficio being the only differentials here.
Well,
there's a good shot. There's actually a decent shot. That
North America's
also
standing
the TL
united
game
against him, yeah. So we're going to be on the same page against Deficio.
I actually think we got a good chance. So yes, 100 Thieves and Clutch Gaming is an
That's
incredibly close game. When David Lim does a pre-countdown interview, they
Doesn't
win.
lose.
When Mark predicts against them, what happens?
I don't know what happens then, but but either
no
way,
pattern.
I mean, let's see. We'll find out soon enough whether or not Deficio is the superior analyst from the league across the pond.
Yeah, I have a little bit of ground to make up on one game behind Jap, but I'm saving that for tomorrow. I want to see how today goes. Get the guaranteed win, stay within striking distance, and look for the upset.
Well, you guys have a differential in that first game of the day. Not you two, but you two and Deficio. So let's go ahead and get into win conditions for that first match of the day. Clutch Gaming versus 100 Thieves. Mark, kick us off.
Yeah, since I am Clutch Gaming's official mascot, I guess I will be representing them. And for me, the win condition is kill the Cody man, Cody's son. Oh, we're getting 100 Thieves.
Oh, I guess we're starting on the other side.
It's
you go.
similar. Every time you talk about 100 Thieves winning, you talk about playing around bottom lane, but I feel like this team really unlocks their potential when they can get someday going. So you can play around bottom lane. You don't have to win bottom lane. You just have to make sure Cody's in a successful place. And then give someday a counter pick, because he can actually be very good in carry or counter pick matchups.
All right, Mark, I have no idea what you're about to say. Give me your win conditions for Cody.
It's kill Cody, son. Woo! Yeah, there you go. I won't do the Joker impression because it's awful, but the idea is you need to find a way to kill Cody. He has been the superstar carry for this team. Afro and Meteos do a lot to get him ahead, but once he gets those leads, he runs with it pretty effectively, so they need to find a way, get to Cody. Apollo and Hakuho like doing counter picks, so that should align well with what they like doing anyways. Just need to make sure they execute on it.
Again, it's a third-place battle, but with implications of a possible first-round bye. There's a lot riding on it for both of these teams, both being new orgs as well to the North American LCS.
Yeah, and a lot of my predictions in this game does come down to trends. We had that line for Clutch Gaming where they beat everyone below them and lose to everyone above them. They violated that once by beating Echo Fox, but then they turned around later that week and lost to Team Liquid. 100 Thieves is another team they lost to the first time they played, and I think 100 Thieves has gotten a lot better since then.
And that victory over Echo Fox, like Echo Fox have been struggling a lot recently to the point where you're starting to see some changes come in with their lineup, so it's hard to read too far into that as how much was like Clutch Gaming really stepping up and beating someone above them versus a struggling opponent.
10 games left in the regular season. We get 5 of them today. It's time to get into that first one, so we're going to toss up to the casters to get into the games.
Thank you very much, Dash. It's going to be an exciting final week here of North American LCS play as we get ready to jump into Champion Select for the first match of the day. It's a good one, Azale.
Gonna have to remember, every game counts.
Every game counts indeed. We got so many teams like they talked about. It's all about getting those buys for the teams that have already locked themselves into playoffs and earning a spot in the postseason for those that haven't. We're going to be playing on patch 8.5 today like they've already mentioned for us, so a few changes that may be shaking things up on the rift between these teams.
Yeah, definitely so, and I'm excited to see when and if teams are actually going to use Swain, because I think the Swain is incredibly strong on this patch. It was getting picked and banned in the Academy, so I definitely think we will be seeing it show up at least in the ban list. But you know, it's a flex pick. It's extremely powerful in the mid lane now, especially in my opinion, and definitely am not sure how prepared some of these guys are going to be for it.
Well, we'll hopefully find out here in just a moment as we get into Champion Select for the first time of Week 9 of the NALCS Spring Split. Let's see how the Thieves and Clutch Gaming want to handle this one. Gangplank, the first ban from 100 Thieves. Clutch Gaming getting rid of the Rise.
Yeah, and it should be pretty interesting. I mean, Skarner, Olaf, still incredibly high priority. Past that, you know, it does become a bit more kind of user's choice. So Swain is going to get banned away, not willing to give over that first pick. But teams have had kind of varying degrees, I think, of a priority placed on Swain and varying degrees of success when they are picking it. It's an interesting pick because it is so incredibly hard to take down. It's very powerful in team fighting, and when you do kind of attack this champion, he can really struggle to deal with it. But that being said, his wave clear is pretty weak compared to a lot of these other mages that are very popular right now, and that is why, in my opinion, you can use kind of some of the roaming champions pretty well against it. If you want to play something like a Talia, you can kind of get out on the map, shove him in, and just try to avoid fighting him and try to snowball other lanes. But definitely a power pick, and not going to get to see it just yet.
Well, speaking of power picks, we've seen Azir always be strong for quite a while now. He'll be banned away by 100 Thieves, keeping that one out of the hands of Feathervin. We've seen what he can do on the champ. Morgana and Zaya, your last couple of bans of this first rotation, which means Skarner is open, and that's first locked in by the 100 Thieves.
Yeah, Skarner, that early pick. But Olaf is a really good answer to this, so it's interesting to see Meteos actually prioritizing the Skarner above the Olaf on this patch. Definitely expecting to see Lyra playing the Olaf, unless it is something that he's just simply not comfortable with, but there is the answer right away. The Ragnarok is such a good answer to Skarner's ultimate, even getting out of the stuns, being able to kind of run down and deal with his champion, both in the early stages, but also in the later stages of the game. I think Olaf definitely has a strong matchup there. And Zyrocon is off the board. So I'm going to be pretty interested to see where these guys are going to be going with their bot lane picks. We saw in win conditions, Mark talked a lot about the importance of Cody-san in the team. He's enabled very heavily both by Meteos and Aphromoo, who has been incredible these last couple weeks on playmakers. But where do they look for priority in this bottom lane? Because if Apollo and Hakuo can get a strong 2v2 and really put Cody-san behind, they may have a much easier time shutting him down in the later stages.
Well, talking about getting that strong 2v2 and making sure you've got a good presence in the lane, I mean, we see the Xayah banned away, which is the top tier AD carry right now that everybody seems to want to go for, but Varus has been another one of those big contenders in the bottom lane, so Clutch Gaming getting that for themselves, it's a good sign for Apollo being in a spot to do what he needs to do.
It definitely is, and Caitlyn has been rising in priority, I think, quite a lot over this last patch or two, really starting to become more and more popular as a fairly lane-dominant pick. And if you can win lane, you can rotate it around the map, pressure turrets, and try to get to the point where you become very strong in team fighting, which is traditionally at that 3-item power spike for her. We are not going to see an AD carry locked in just yet, which does give Clutch the opportunity to perhaps do a counter pick on the mid lane right here, and then just ban out a couple 80 carries if they think they want to try to aim for a more advantageous bot lane 2v2.
Yeah, 100 Thieves going to go ahead, blind pick the mid laner, get themselves the Talia along with the Braum that they selected right before it, but they're not worried about the counter pick. They just wanted to make sure they got that pick that they found so important before the second part of the bans rolled in.
Okay, well, they're not going to go for that mid lane counter, so no real big punish on that. One of the advantages that you do really have on the red side is if blue side wants to pick a solo lane in the first 3, then you can counterpick that with your first pick or your last pick in the first round, and then also counterpick the other solo lane in the second round. In this case, they're not electing to do that because they have a pretty high priority on this Tahm Kench support, very strong into the Skarner. Also, being able to kind of eat people out away from the Braum, and his CC is going to be pretty strong and something that can definitely help to keep Lyra safe, or sorry, Apollo safe.
I mean, Skarner's ultimate, one of the biggest playmaking tools on the champion and in the game, but Tahm Kench's Devour will pull an ally right out of it like with any other CC, so it's a great pick into that. And just with an immobile AD carry in general, having that extra escape mechanism, keeping the Varus out of harm's way, always a fantastic plan as those bans toward the solo lanes come in from both teams as we enter the second part of the ban phase. Orianna for 100 Thieves, banned away. Clutch Gaming getting rid of the Shen and now the Kog'Maw.
And it makes a lot of sense targeting the Orianna. It is actually the second most played this split for Feven, the first being the Azir, which has already been taken off the table. Ban out some of those comfort picks and ban out some of the things that are going to be tough for the Talia so that you're not put in as disadvantageous of a matchup. The Kog'Maw being taken away here is pretty interesting from Cody-san. Clutch has some concerns then about that kind of protect the Kog'Maw style composition. Tristana is still on the table though, and that is actually Cody-san's go-to AD carry this split. It has been his most played with 5 picks. The next most played was actually Kog'Maw at 3, tied with the Ezreal, so that is still available, but Tristana definitely can be pushed around in lane somewhat by the Varus.
Yeah, we'll have to see if that's what they would want to decide to do on the side of 100 Thieves. Clutch Gaming deciding to grab themselves Zoe. She had been taken out of the picture for a little while there, but with some of the rebuffs coming in on 8.5, she may just be a threat in the mid lane once more.
Yeah, definitely not back to, I think, her kind of overlord status as she was in the past, where it was always going to be banned away or early picked. But it is strong again, and Febiven certainly is someone who can pilot this champion, has already played it once earlier on in the split, and the Caitlyn comes out, as we talked about earlier. It makes a lot of sense, I think, especially because the Tristana can struggle into the Varus. Caitlyn is someone that can answer and oftentimes exceed the laning power of that of the Varus. And there's a fair bit of dive here with the Olaf already, so being able to have that safety of the Caitlyn, having the long range, is going to be pretty helpful here.
I mean, between Caitlyn and Talia, and you've got the Braum, there's a lot of disengage on the side of the Thieves and Clutch Gaming when you look at a Zoe throwing out bubbles and Varus able to create distance between himself and opponents through utilizing the ultimate, and even Kench. Plenty of ways to get out of a fight if your opponents pull the trigger for both teams here, as 100 Thieves goes with Cho'Gath
as their final pick of the draft.
And we did get to see a Darius come out from Someday last week. I'm not sure if we're going to get to see this from Solo or not.
Lock it in.
I would love to see him popping this out.
Oh, all right. Unlucky.
It's going to be the Narc. So pretty standard stuff here coming out of Solo. Someday, on the Cho'Gath, this is becoming more and more of a common blind pick here for the top lane. It's just such a steady tank and someone who is really hard to kind of push around in lane. That being said, Gnar certainly can build fairly big advantages in that 1v1. It's just a question of, can you continue to build that advantage, or is the Cho'Gath going to stabilize? Because Cho'Gath is always going to have use in a team fight. You're always going to be able to contribute that ultimate and use your feast to kind of make your team win frontline versus frontline with that big true damage burst coming in on a tank. And Gnar, it's more difficult. You have to be able to find the big Mega Gnar ultimate. You have to be able to land those combos, or you have to be able to continually build your advantages in the side lane, or risk being less effective than the Cho'Gath.
I'm talking about that feast with the Cho'Gath. I like the pick into the Olaf specifically because, I mean, he runs into the back line. Yeah, you're not going to CC him. You're not going to get him off of the Caitlyn or the Taliyah that way, but if he's dead, he's still not going to be CC immune because he's just on the ground. So having that extra burst, being able to get him out of the picture that way, I think it's a solid strategy here for 100 Thieves. Going up against Clutch Gaming, both these teams 10 and 6 going into week 9. Fantastic showings from both so far this split.
Worth pointing out is actually Cody-san rocking the cleanse here on Caitlyn, which is pretty atypical. I don't believe I have seen this at all this entire split in the NALCS, and AD carry bringing cleanse, so we'll have to get that confirmed, but this is actually a first for me. And there is a lot of crowd control on this other team, perhaps really concerned about the Mega Gnar initiations, the Varus ultimates, the sleep there from Zoe and these sorts of things, but definitely not something you see often, and does make you quite a bit weaker, I think, in the early stages as far as if there is an all-in fight or those sorts of things. It's often hard to find value from that cleanse.
I mean, it's not going to bring you that combat potential in a 2 versus 2. So often we see these things decided by who's got the heal or who's got the exhaust or who's got the ignite, but a cleanse is none of those tools, and while it might get you away from a gank, you're not going to have that head-to-head power if you find yourself going up against your opponents early on, like you mentioned.
And just what are you even going to cleanse from this gank, right? Are you going to cleanse the slow from an Olaf axe or something like that? Pre-6, there is no major CC that's going to be coming in. Yeah, maybe the Kench tongue stun, but generally speaking, if you're in that position to get hit by that, you're probably screwed anyway. So it is interesting, but we'll have to see how that's going to work out for Cody-san. Could give him a lot more safety later on. And when you hear the guys on the desk talking about the fact that Clutch needs to be able to take down this AD carry on 100 Thieves in the late game to be able to be successful, this is going to kind of help him to be a little bit more slippery and give him a little bit more of that safety in the later stages, because you're not just going to be able to kill him off with one sort of ultimate initiation coming in from Apollo or anything like that.
One thing I also want to mention about this matchup, this game between the Skarner and the Olaf, normally we see Skarner, one reason he became so popular, the fact that he's able to be so powerful when he's in those zones of control, those spires in the jungle, but Olaf, one of the few champions that's such an adept duelist, he can still put up a fight against Skarner even within those zones. So I really want to watch how these two junglers decide to play around each other and how strong they may be at these different points.
And I think he's one of the few tanks that can also kind of match the clear speed of the Skarner, right? He can clear incredibly fast, even without a leash, as we saw here. You let yourself get very low HP on this Olaf, and then with the Berserker Rage passive, you're getting 1% attack speed for every 1% of missing health that you do have, so you clear it much faster at low health, and that's one of the reasons that you can kind of power through that jungle very, very quickly.
Plus, with both of these guys having Predator, that rune that seems to have shown up and sort of solved some of the age-old problems of these just run at him champs.
Turns out if you're just running at them, it's good to run at them fast.
Yeah, turns out if just running is your game plan, the faster you run, the better that plan's going to end up being. So I want to keep eyes on which one of these guys can better find the opportunity to get the most out of that active item after they do go back and buy the boots. Of course, you can't activate the Predator until you've gone back to base at least once there, but looks like we're just going to see some more advanced farming for now.
Yeah, we definitely are. And Meteos, he is kind of just up on the top side trying to protect his top laner from any potential gank as they are pushing in, but they're actually moving Ryu up here as well. They're looking to potentially go for a 3-man dive on Solo.
This could be a very big play coming out here. The seismic shove into the stun and first blood for 100 Thieves.
Solo made that way too easy. Not flashing the knock up there from Cho'Gath essentially guaranteed everything else would hit. and he's going to get knocked down so early on. And we talked about how you have to be able to bully this lane as a Gnar. You have to be the one who is ahead. Getting put on the back foot like that is really rough. But yeah, just straight up, just gets hit by the knockup. He was not silenced. Does not look like he decides to use his flash. Maybe deciding that he is guaranteed dead regardless is the only thing I can really think there. But
yeah,
didn't really make him work too hard for it. At the same time, they are going to be able to get Infernal. So, you know, as far as big picture, I think that is a pretty okay trade. It's just concerning that this could affect the strength of Solo going forward in the game pretty heavily because he needs to be ahead, he needs to be winning, or the Cho'Gath is just going to be so much more useful. So we'll have to track how that lane goes.
Right, that was not where the Gnar wanted to be, but at the same time, one of the earliest, if not the single earliest Elemental Drake take I have seen this entire split. But Clutch Gaming getting that Infernal early on, not going to have a huge impact right now. It is a percent-based bonus, and considering everybody's just sitting on a Doran's Blade or a Doran's Ring at this point in time, you're not getting much out of those percents. But if this game goes late, it could end up being a huge factor for Clutch Gaming. They are behind 500 gold. After that first blood with assist money goes the way of 100 Thieves, and we saw this last week, Azale. We saw 100 Thieves, this team that we normally talk about. Oh, Cody Sun's carrying, he's doing the damage, Aframu's making the plays, he's setting this all up. They played through Someday instead. They were on the top half of the map. They just sort of let Cody and Afro do their thing, but they played around Someday. They played around that top part of the map, and now it seems like they're focusing that again.
Yeah, it is very interesting to see, you know, how they are deciding to play out this game. On the bottom side of the map, Apollo and Hako are actually doing very well in that 2v2. You can see they're establishing a farm advantage, and they are the ones actually pressuring Cody Sun and Aframu. But, you know, for Meteos and Ryu to kind of commit those resources up to the top lane, I don't think that's a lane that you're looking to non-stop camp. I think that's a lane that you're hoping, hey, I affect this once early on, and this stabilizes it enough for the Cho'Gath that I can now ignore this for the rest of the game and focus elsewhere. And we'll have to see if that is really the way they want to play it, because generally speaking, Cho'Gath lane is not really where you want to kind of try to snowball it. It's just make sure that this guy is tanky enough and strong enough that he will not get bullied by the Gnar, and then now you've kind of removed a lot of the effectiveness of the Gnar for the rest of the game.
Nice aim there by Ryu in the mid lane, able to find the seismic shove onto Fevivin. We talked about how this Zoe fell out of popularity after the nerfs hit her pretty hard a while back, removing her from pick ban status. But now that she's back in the mix, it's up to Fevivin to make sure he can land those big combos. I mean, this is one of those champions that creates situations that it can be so hard to push against just because of how effective she is. One misstep and you're in trouble.
Yeah, definitely so. The Sleepy Trouble bubble, you know, over the wall, catching out a carry can be so concerning. You know, that can set you up for the one shot. Aframu can obviously look to try to block some of that out with the Braum shield. You know, Cody Sun and Ryu are both going to have cleanses to help to deal with that. And you're going to have a Cho'Gath and a Skarner kind of in the front too, trying to make that more difficult for Fevivin. But he will have his opportunities to kind of find those big combos and to take over team fights. And I think so far Ryu has just tried to play it in a way that is just avoiding his opponent. You just shove it in with Taliyah, you avoid interacting with this guy, and you threaten roams. And that's kind of how you create a lot of pressure on the map as Taliyah without necessarily being able to really threaten killing your opponent.
It's the Taliyah bread and butter, right? It's not about that 1 versus 1 potential. It's all about the ability to have that threat somewhere else, whether it's top lane, whether it's bottom lane, especially now that the ulti is up and running for him, we might see more playmaking being done.
And that's a big reason why you see the emphasis on all this vision on the top side river here from 100 Thieves. You can see they've cleared, you know, a lot of the wards out. They have a number of wards all along this river, because now anytime Ryu goes into fog, Solo has to play as though Ryu is coming. So you have to give that respect over, which sometimes means sacrificing farm, which means sacrificing, you know, a winning trade and these sorts of things, because you have to show respect to the fact that Taliyah could show up very, very quickly. And that's why it is so important to just always threaten the roams, even if you're not willing to commit to it. And right now you can see him doing that kind of on the bottom side river. He pushes in the wave. You always want to go somewhere else and make them think about the fact that you can.
We mentioned how the mid laners had the ultimates available and ready to go. Junglers now have those tools running in the kits as well. We'll have to see if that ends up turning into a fight anywhere around here. Meteos and Lyra will be aware that each other's around, and this is what I was talking about earlier. Even though this is the Skarner Spire, this is the area where he shines, and he's able to fight most champions. He sees Lyra, he wants nothing to do with it. He concedes control of the Scuttlecraft.
Yeah, you definitely have to be wary of that, because your crowd control really means nothing, and that is where so much of Skarner's power comes from. And the Ragnarok just says, well, no, that doesn't actually do anything against me. So we'll have to see where Meteos is going to elect to go. It is difficult when you can't necessarily pick the jungler. The Tahm Kench can deny a lot of that. There's more limited options.
And one of the big things you saw right there, a lot of pings coming out from Clutch Gaming right on top of Meteos as he captures that point. Remember, you can see it on your mini-map even if it's not warded.
This is
so they're
Captain
very
Virus
aware. this is the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems with Skarner. The fact that that gives away your position always. So if you're capturing those spires, you have to be cognizant of the fact that you're giving your opponents your position like that. So Meteos, they know where he was as of a couple seconds ago. But mid lane, it's still going to be about shoving those waves out for both these champions. Once some of that wave clear potential comes online, that's one of the big hits that they had on the Zoe, right? The wave clear getting hit, because she was always so good at just instantly killing the back line and making it so she could shove, but not quite as easy to do these days.
It's definitely not, but it's also not as weak as it had been when she completely disappeared. So just, you know, in a little bit of a middle ground now, and it remains to be seen just kind of how strong she will be in competitive in these coming weeks. But game has certainly stabilized. You can see the bot lane lead has not really materialized into anything too big. You know, Apollo going back, building towards that Rage Blade, has all his components, and we're going to see Cody-san, you know, getting his buy off here very shortly. And it looks like, you know, across the map, things are pretty stable. You definitely would say things are in the favor of 100 Thieves, though, as it is actually the Gnar behind on farm. It is the Gnar behind on pressure, thanks in part to that early gank on the top side.
And I want to harken back to what you were talking about earlier when you said the tank farming speed in the jungle and how Olaf can match the Skarner, who normally outpaces everyone else. It is Lyra who has that farm advantage right now over his opponent in Meteos. Both these guys working on getting that Cinder Hulk up and running, but Lyra has opted into the Chilling Smite first, just to make sure that he has that extra chase potential. Meteos getting more of the raw stats with the Bomby Cinder.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting, too, because you do sometimes see people going Red Smite on this Olaf, so it is a little bit back and forth, people, you know, electing to choose one or the other. There are different schools of thought. Obviously, the Chilling Smite makes it easier to hit your first axe, but if you're hitting all your axes anyway, then you don't necessarily need that slow, so you could have that Red Smite. But Meteos up here to the top side looking for solo.
Meteos wants to make it happen. Flash immediately into the pole, drags him right back towards the Rupture, but it does not connect. Meaning Solo can get away from this one, but Someday is not stopping just yet. He'll absorb the pressure from the turret, making room for both Ryu and Meteos to move in and clean it all up.
Yeah, Ryu coming up means there's just no escape for Solo, and that time, by no fault of his own, there's really nothing he could have done to escape there. You know, Someday and Meteos actually mistiming that Rupture combo. They're trying to have the ult into the Rupture, into the Silence, and kill him before he can do anything. He even gets away from that, but with 3 men coming in, no real chance for him to survive, and that means top turret can be pressured, and it's again just right back to the top side. So Flash ultimate there onto Solo. Needed to start channeling that Rupture faster, but Solo actually is able to flash out of it. The Silence misses there as well, but then they decide, hey, Ryu's coming up. We can just dive this regardless. Someday doesn't even have his ultimate, but he can just tank this up for his opponent, and kind of allow Ryu and Meteos the time to get in there and deal the rest of the damage.
And this is feeling a lot like Deja Vu, Azael, because right as 100 Thieves make the 3-man play to get the kill top, their opponents instantly respond, grabbing the Drake, so that's another one of those neutral objectives over to Clutch Gaming. Ocean this time instead of Infernal, so more useful right now, less useful later on. But they're not giving away anything for free. Every time Solo's dying, something is going their way for it, so they're going blow for blow with it.
And it is really nice to see them make those trades, and you know, if the top laners were reversed, if it was actually a Cho'Gath on the side of Clutch, I would think that they're getting way more out of this, because it's okay if the Cho'Gath is behind. I just do question, you know, is it okay to get this behind when it is the Gnar versus the Cho'Gath, because the Cho'Gath is going to scale better, is going to be more easy to execute on the team fights and all of these sorts of things. So that's kind of what is throwing a wrench in the gears of these trades, where you would normally say, yeah, of course you want to give a kill for an Infernal, that's fine. But in this case, it's going to be tough, because Someday is going to be this immovable object in the top lane. And, you know, if you're not getting turrets, if you're not pressuring this guy, he's going to show up to the team fight, and he's just going to be worth so much more than the Gnar. As you said, you know, you pop Ragnarok and you Predator in there on the Olaf, and he just ults you, everyone focuses you. Great, you're immune to CC, but you're instantly dead.
You're gone. You're already out of the picture. And one thing I also want to touch on real quick here, as we're talking about where the gold leads are and who's going to be ahead and behind in these team fights, you can already see the QSS being purchased very early for Feathervin. He wants to respect what Meteos may be able to do with those pulls and even get out of some of the other CC, but paying that tax means you're 1,300 gold effectively behind.
Yeah, and he will get something from the MR. You know, it's not like it's completely useless, and you can use it on other things here or there. But that being said, as far as combat stats, as far as offensive power, he will be certainly much weaker, and it means that he's going to complete his Seraphs that much later, or whatever he wants to go for first here. So that's definitely going to be an advantage for Ryu, who is much closer to that finishing point. You can see Lyra, though, working kind of on these neutral objectives. This has been mostly his focus so far this game, but he's going to be spotted, and that probably means he's going to have to flash out, which should just be 100 Thieves getting this.
100 Thieves forcing away that enemy jungler. Someday also winning off
Ryu.
the 1 versus 1 here. Solo barely getting over the wall in time as Ryu rushes in to look for that kill yet again. Meteos will allow the Rift Herald, it looks like, to reset there, and they're not going to worry about that one for now.
And maybe should have just committed to actually taking that Rift Herald and get what looked to be a guaranteed objective after Lyra had flashed out instead of trying to go up to the top side, but they decide perhaps that it's too risky with Zoe around, the potential to poke them off of that objective and try to go right back up to the top side once more.
Well, at least they got the flash for free out of the Olaf, right? We're talking about 2 champs in the Olaf and the Skarner.
That here again.
Oh, could have a problem.
Ooh, feels bad, man.
Solo, this is not where you want to be, my friend. All right, let's see if the second time is a charm. They got the silence first.
Nope.
Missed the rupture, and he gets away.
I mean, at this point, that's pretty poorly done, honestly, from Someday. To mistime that twice in a row, it's not that hard to do. They're trying to threaten the dive here, but Solo and Mega, all right, it's timing out. They're going to go for it.
Not in Mega any longer. They should have the damage here. The feast comes through, and Solo is out of there. 0, 3, and 0 on the Gnar. Ryu comes up as reinforcements. Febiven and Lyra won't get anything out of this one on the back end of that play. They want to try to defend the turret, but it's such low HP. I don't think it's going to be very easy to do that right now.
I think there's just no chance. With it a couple hits away, even if you start attacking them, they can focus the turret, then turn for the fight. So this Chunky are going to come out, though.
Ryu taking a lot of damage from that one. Febby almost solos him down, but Ryu will barely get away from that one.
Yeah, Ryu survives, and Febby been doing a good job trying to get something back there, but Clutch in general have not done a good job of protecting Solo. This has been time and time again them moving up to the top side, step back, wait for the Mega Gnar to time out. Someday tanks it up, and he has the ultimate this time, so that it's very easy to clean up. Plus, it's not going to count towards the guaranteed 6 stacks you can get off minions and monsters, which is always really nice. That means just getting stronger and stronger towards that later stages. But when there's this much focus on the Gnar, you can't expect him to win the lane by himself. You need to have people in position to either counter gank or to do something, or really try to punish someone elsewhere. But it feels like although they have traded some objectives, they have been able to give up the dragons, and they're not that far behind in gold. I'm kind of disappointed in the fact that Lyra hasn't even really attempted any ganks.
Right, Lyra 0, 0, and 0 on this Olaf. You talked about when he was doing the Rift Herald, how he was controlling the neutral objectives, and that's been his game, and there's nothing wrong with that, but when your top laner's in the spot he's in, things can get a little bit dicey up there. Hopefully for Clutch Gaming's sake, they can get something going here soon. You've got the next Drake spawning in about 25 seconds. It will be the 3rd different kind we're seeing this time. Garage sale of Drakes early on here in this first game of the day. Clutch already with 2 under their belts. Might be able to take control of the area, establish that priority for the 3rd. They do have themselves the Scuttle Crab right now. Drake only 10 seconds left on spawn, but Ryu does have that shove we were talking about, so it's very easy for him to get that wave underneath the enemy turret.
And Someday just walks right down, right? He has already knocked down that first turret up in the top lane. Now he is rotated down towards this dragon, so this should be another guaranteed one. And a feast stack. You want to see them give this over to Someday to just get him even stronger at this point. That's going to be, feast stack for Cho'Gath. He's already going to be sitting at 6 stacks, and 2 of them not being minions and monsters, so he can get a guaranteed 8. Now they're looking to threaten the dive here. Hawkwo going to ult him out.
Hawkwo tries to get away, but just barely gets himself stopped. Now he tries to use the Devour. Once again, popping everything in the arsenal to keep Apollo alive, and he will do so. Counterattack from Clutch Gaming, able to find some damage onto multiple members. Cody stunned. Going to be taken low as Ryu gets taken out first. Lyra coming in from behind. Aphromoo is stuck. Cody's stun is gone. And Clutch Gaming punishes 100 Thieves.
They just flipped the game on the head, and now the ultimate is up for Hawkwo. He's looking for the chase, but finally, Clutch are able to react to one of these dives. They see it coming. They're able to get in position, and hilariously enough, the slow ult out may have actually allowed them to turn that around, because I think had Apollo jumped into Tom Genji's belly a little bit faster, they would have got out scot-free, but they wouldn't have been able to actually turn around and get those kills. So just like that, Clutch battle back. They get 3 kills. They're going to get the mid lane turret, and they are now up in gold in this game.
Let me tell you about Hawkwo, man. This guy knows how to make plays on support. Once again, going in, wants to get the Devour, gets the stun. There we go. Gobble, 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 gobble. Get out of there. Someday gets a taste of his own medicine.
Yeah, that's not going to feel too good, getting dove like that. So much CC coming in. And And now, I mean, no one is up on the top side really to answer Solo just yet either, so they're going to send Ryu up there. As mid lane turret has been knocked down, he's going to try to collect this farm. But that is such a big swing in the game here for Clutch, and really everything kind of felt like it went wrong in that dive for 100 Thieves. If we get to see that replay again, here it is once more. They spot this coming out on the ward just now. They're trying to react to this, and Apollo a little bit of hesitation. Not sure if he would have actually completed the animation either way. But Apollo and Hakuo do a really good job surviving, waiting a long time. The gray health barely coming out, the heal as well. Apollo just barely surviving, Hakuo just barely surviving. Solo in the Mega Gnar, so critical in that fight, coming in at just the right time, able to get a lot of CC down, and they cleaned up so many kills there. That is going to be a really big confidence boost for Clutch.
Such a swing in momentum for a team that we just got done saying, hopefully for their sake, they can make a play soon.
Yeah.
It seems like they haven't coordinated anything, and almost on command, they launched the counterattack exactly as it needs to be done to put themselves up 1,000 gold ahead of 100 Thieves.
I mean, that's a risk when you make those sorts of dives, right? If you don't execute it properly, if it is not perfectly orchestrated, you go from a situation like that where you could have maybe instantly killed both the bot laners to them both barely surviving and then everything starting to turn around. So it's these small margins that can make such a difference, because if you eliminate Apollo and Hakuo from that fight right off the bat, they probably can't get turned around. And they were so close to doing it.
And remember, this is the last week of regular play for North American LCS Spring Split. That means that going into next week, you're going into your postseason. You're going into those big quarterfinal matches, and if you can come off of this week feeling confident about your team, feeling confident about the calls you make and how that synergy you have works together, it could bode very well for you in that. And conversely, if you aren't feeling good, if things are feeling really uncoordinated,
or bot again,
it could go bad. Hakuo might be in some trouble here. Going to be knocked up into the air. Glacial Fissure comes down. Meteos, not even needing the ultimate just yet, gets the stun down. Flash forward, but he underestimates what can be done by the Tom Kench. Still won't matter. Ryu swoops in, able to grab himself that kill, and 100 Thieves gets themselves two.
And nicely done, just right back to the scene of the crime. They know a lot of the key summoners are going to be still down, so this time there's no way for Clutch to really get out. Ryu even holding onto that ultimate for a long time, perhaps trying to scout out if others were coming down, but when he commits to it, they get another couple kills. They're going to knock down this turret and regain some control in this game.
What a close game between these two squads. Gold being traded back and forth in small leads. Trouble Bubble finds its way onto Cody's son, who's not going to be hit by the follow-up. Happy about that one as Lyra gets thrown back by the power of the seismic shove. Still pretty tanky on that Olaf. Not too worried overall.
And Ryu going to be able to try to clear this out, but they are trying to force multiple people to stay around. So Someday has actually moved down to try to help wave clear this and give a tanky force that can not just be dove by that Olaf right there. So here it is once more. They're focusing onto Hakuo because if you ult onto Apollo, he is simply going to run straight away. And even though he had a QSS, so much CC to actually layer over. You can see the stun, then ulting and pulling him back in. He gets eaten up by Hakuo, but Apollo, no way out on this one with no flash and no heal.
And we've talked about 100 Thieves, how they like to enable Cody's son, how this is the guy that if you get him ahead, he can put down the damage. You can see on your screen right now, very high ranked in a lot of these critical measurements for AD carries across the league.
Yeah, I mean, he has been crushing it statistically. That's pretty funny. A week or two ago, he just kind of casually tweets out a statistics website. He's like, oh, go check this out. Wow, it's a cool site. By the way, I'm first in every category, but he has been doing really well. And 100 Thieves looking for another one.
Ooh,
Nice shove.
Two-man shove coming out there as Hakuo has to eat up the Olaf to keep him alive. Drowsy on two Meteos. He will get away just fine. They're not going to look to find anything off the back of that one. 100 Thieves goes for that, but not quite finding what they're looking for.
You can see QSS picked up here by Aframu, so a lot of early QSSs. People really concerned with double cleanse, QSS, even Aframu switching to a cleanse with the QSS. People are very concerned about the CC and what that can mean when you have that Zoe Sleep, when you have the Varus initiations and the ultimate coming out from the Gnar. That can be make or break in a fight. So really prioritizing, staying in control of their characters, staying in a position where they can, move around and have the utmost teamfight effectiveness.
Infernal Drake live now, 4th Drake this game. Rift Herald summon in the mid lane, 100 Thieves using that as a distraction so they can grab the Drake.
Exactly, you drop it mid lane, you're hoping to be able to get that turret, but even if you don't, you secure an Infernal for yourselves. They're able to even that up, so trading back on the Infernal is actually extremely important. Dragons have been prioritized very heavily this game. 23 minutes in, 4 already taken, an Infernal apiece. That is pretty much dead even in that regard, and it should be another stack, having gone over to Someday, who is now sitting at 9 stacks on the Cho'Gath. And I mean, he's at 4,200 health with 1 item completed, right? Like, that is insane. This is going to be a monstrous Cho'Gath, and once he gets that Warmogs, once he starts picking up more and more of these items, he's quickly going to be approaching 5,000 health, already at 4,500.
And when you look at Solo, who has a Black Cleaver and is now working on tank items of his own to make sure he's viable in the team fights, there's nothing you're doing to the Cho'Gath at that point in time. Once you're in the side lane, this isn't the Gnar that bullies the Cho away and forces him back under the turret and makes you respond.
Yep.
Which
it's got to be the playmaking plan, right? It's got to be the playmaking. And to Solo's credit, from behind, he did find that great TP to bot lane and turn around one of those fights with the Mega Gnar, right? And that's where Clutch got most of their kills. So it's not that Solo cannot find effectiveness in a big play. It's just that it's much harder to do so because all Someday has to do is kind of waddle in the team fight, absorb some damage, ult somebody, and you're doing right.
Afromu using that QSS to get away from the follow-up CC there after the Sleepy Trouble Bubble connects. Apollo threw out the ult to try to make sure they got the chain CC to grab the kill, but Afromu thinking ahead. QSS is out in time to keep himself safe.
Definitely does. QSS now here onto Apollo as well, so he is quite a defensive build, which also spells, I think, a little bit of trouble for how you're going to kill Someday. And it's not that it's, you know, an incorrect build, it's just that where do you get all your damage when it's a Wit's End and a QSS and Tabbies? That's so much gold investment into defense. And, you know, Fevin here on the Zoe, that's not really much of a tank killer either. So it's going to be troublesome to take down this Cho'Gath for sure.
Especially now that Someday has Warmogs up and running. I mean, none of the poke is going to do a lot, but Ryu has made his way into the fight. What an entrance it is! The bot lane is deleted, and Clutch Gaming, excuse me, routed from this as 100 Thieves move their way over towards the Baron pit.
Yeah, they can run straight to the Baron 25 minutes in. They won't have the Feast to secure it, but it is a very short cooldown, so if they want to slow play it, they might be able to. Instead, they're just going to try to straight rush this down. Looks like Clutch is not even going to attempt to steal Lyra right back into his own jungle. He's farming it up, smites the wolves, so this is going to be 100 Thieves Baron, and what a dominant team fight there.
Baron, no contest. Someday left to defend things, and 100 Thieves are in a great spot after that fantastic collapse onto the bottom lane.
Here it is once more. Ryu starting it out, has been everywhere on the Taliyah this game. Hits the seismic shove, pulling back Hakuo and Apollo, and then just deleted by the Cho'Gath. Apollo, no chance to really get out of that one. Gets knocked down so incredibly fast. And Someday is just monstrous in this game. The time that they put in to getting him ahead has paid off so many times over.
And we mentioned last week when this same thing happened, when Someday was going off on the Darius, when he was just taking over the game like that, it's great for 100 Thieves when you're going into playoffs, when you're going into a situation where you're going to be in a best of 5 instead of a best of 1, to be able to say, we have multiple win conditions. We have multiple lanes we can play around and different approaches we can take to the game. That is a fantastic spot to be in.
It totally is. You don't want to be one of those one-dimensional teams that is easy to prepare for, and when you don't know which lane a team is going to play through, which style they're going to be looking at, it's so difficult to actually get prepared for that, both as far as your in-game plan and as far as the drafting goes. And right now, 100 Thieves just pushing up mid lane, pushing up bot lane, looking to knock more turrets off the map and just increase this advantage. And for Clutch, it's got to be about the picks with Zoe, really, at this point. You need to find some sort of Sleepy Bubble trouble, burst someone down, but Someday it's just going to get right in there.
He's got the Righteous Glory. He's got the wall behind him. Lyra forced to pop the ulti and flash away from that one. 100 Thieves gets some critical resources from their opponents, as well as taking down the tier 2 turret, and they're going to continue down bottom.
And all that cost them was the Taliyah ultimate. Someday didn't flash or expend his ultimate or anything, so there's no chance to really defend this next turret, I feel. As 100 Thieves are moving up on this, I don't think you can even try to engage. It's going to be given.
I mean, not only is this a Baroned up team, this is a Baroned up team with Taliyah and Caitlyn. That is not an easy back line to try to force an engage.
Yeah, I mean, such strong siege potential. The Caitlyn can also be knocking that down incredibly easily. You have 3 big frontline tanks who can be standing in front and, you know, absorbing any skill shots coming in from Fevin. Even if the AD carry gets caught, he is looking likely boarding towards a QSS, and he has his cleanse. So there's a lot of safety there for these guys, and that is why they are continuously being able to extend this gold lead and really put the pressure on.
And we talked earlier on, before the games even started today, about both these teams and how they're brand new organizations that you're seeing perform so well here in spring and make an incredible debut in terms of already qualifying for playoffs and looking like they're going to put up a fight once they get there. So being able to go up against your counterpart, sort of, in that, the team that's telling the same story you are and say, hey, we're telling it better, that's a cool statement to make for 100 Thieves as well.
It definitely is. This Cho'Gath now, this Feast doing over 1,000 true damage, plus he can activate the Stone Plate to make that even more powerful. You know, looking at 1,100, 1,200 true damage coming out of that ultimate if he uses the Stone Plate Feast combo. And that is just so, so terrifying when you have an AD carry who's sitting at 1,400 health. That is essentially one auto plus the Feast, and you are dead if that is
the enchanted auto plus R, you died. Game's over. Apollo is
gotta be careful.
Very much in a precarious spot in these team fights as they approach. Aframu gonna take a little bit of damage from Febby there, but I mean, when you only lose that much HP from a Zoe, you're feeling pretty good about it still. 100 Thieves have now taken down all the tier 2 turrets. Only thing left standing is the base of Clutch Gaming. Aframu brings up the shield, says, get out of here, Zoe. Not allowing any of that today.
It's got to be a frustrating game for Febvin, who has played very well, but there's just so many ways to block and prevent his damage. Ssumday does not care very much about what is happening to him here from Solo, and they're going to actually try to turn it around on a Solo.
Solo tries to make something happen there. Varus ulti already going to be used. Hakuo, nice use of the Blast Cone to get himself away. Sidestepping the Rupture, once again, playing this very well. Stone Plate used. Ssumday looking to grab some kind of a feast here. The disengage comes through, but it's Hakuo who's knocked back with a seismic shove. 100 Thieves still looking to make the plays. It's Solo first, Hakuo second, and that's 2 for 0. A double kill for the already monstrous Ssumday.
And they have minion waves in place in the mid lane coming in here. They can look to push in mid lane, crack an inhibitor. The minion wave in the bottom lane and the top lane are all going to be pushing 400 Thieves, so they have set up everything. They are looking to break into the base, and they are looking to wrap up this game.
100 Thieves will not be contested as they knock down inhibitor turret number 1. The inhibitor itself should be just as easy to take. Lyra on this Olaf, he's 1-0-1. He's a little bit tanky, but if you consider what he's up against, he's just no match for what 100 Thieves has put together for themselves this game. 9-4, 7,000 gold ahead, moving down towards that final elemental Drake that will be spawning this game, getting themselves another Cloud, which means even more rotational speed, better ability to take advantage of these leads like this.
Yeah, and here it is again. Somebody was actually looking for Apollo, I think, with this Stone Plate active there, trying to perhaps prepare for a Stone Plate Flash Feast. He doesn't find it, but he does find another kill there over on a Solo. And this is kind of always how the game is going to look if Nara is not being able to push out the lanes, if you're not being able to create pressure on the map, because you essentially have this 3-tank massive team that is always going to group up and always going to look to team fight, and is incredibly difficult for Clutch to ever team fight into unless they're ahead. So much of this is really just stemming from the early game and from the work that they got done getting this Cho'Gath to this really big place of power.
100 Thieves, I've complimented them a couple times already on their ability to play different ways and enable different people, but Ssumday 5-1-2 on this Cho'Gath, nearly full build. So much of a threat that it doesn't matter how many people you collapse on him with, he can pop the Stone Plate and wait for the rest of the team. Has just turned into this game-changing force of nature in his own right. You can see how he's almost 3,000 gold up on his counterpart, the richest person in the game, the next closest being his own AD carry and Cody Sun.
And he has bought so much time for Cody Sun to farm, right? The focus has not been about Cody Sun, but Cody Sun's on 3 items, a Last Whisper, and that QSS. He is ridiculously strong in his own right, and this is an almost 6,000 HP Cho'Gath with a team that just does not look like it has much chance of ever punching through that.
Inhibitor number 2 needs a couple more hits. Cody will take care of that. Meteos grabs the kill.
I was looking with the Meganar, though.
100 Thieves disengages. Solo immediately just rejected. Drowsy onto Aframu. I don't think it's going to do a whole lot here.
Yeah.
Trouble Bubble into the Paddle Star. When it just is a tickle, the game's not in the spot you need it to be.
I mean, there's just no way to actually hurt that Cho'Gath. And in he comes now, looking for Apollo. We'll see if he can actually catch up to him.
Goes for the Rupture, doesn't quite find it. Apollo and Hakuo a little bit too fast. Chains of Corruption down onto Ssumday, who immediately pops that Stone Plate, keep himself alive. Solo going to be eaten up by Hakuo, kept safe yet again. Baron is live. Keep that in mind. 100 Thieves definitely know it. Moving over towards that part of the map right now. Gonna set up shop in this brush instead. Coming around, here comes the pincer attack. Apollo knocked up into the air. Hakuho wants to try to save him, but instead he's gonna be knocked back. Ryu grabbing the kill onto him first. Trying to escape solo into the back line as Cody's son with the snipe onto Apollo to keep this fight going exactly where the Thieves want it to go. 2 left standing on the side of Clutch Gaming as 100 Thieves will push down the mid lane.
Yeah, walk the minions in, close this one out. 100 Thieves have been in control start to finish, and they made it look easy today against Clutch.
There was one little fumble around bottom side when they tried that dive under the first turret, but ever since then, it's been nothing but success for 100 Thieves. They'll look to take down Febiven. They lose Afromu in the process, but it does not matter. Febby can run all the way back into the mid lane if he wants. 100 Thieves are onto the Nexus. Lyra will be chased down, stunned up. The seismic shove won't quite find him, but 100 Thieves win this game and look good in week 9.
And move to 11 wins. They are tied at the top of the table. This is a team that is looking to threaten for one of those playoff buys, and if Echo Fox or Cloud9 slip up, they still are in danger of losing that number 1, number 2 spot. 100 Thieves could be threatening for that semifinal bye. That's such a big win for them.
I mean, this is a team, we talked about how they look good at the start of the split, then they had a little bit of a wishy-washy spot, and now they're right back on form, and they are just knocking it out of the park in these last couple of weeks. This is not an opponent that you want to be up against going into the quarterfinals and playoffs.
No, definitely not. I mean, you really have to give credit to the draft, but also to the in-game plan, how they executed it. It was really just a clean, well-played game here from 100 Thieves, and Clutch never really felt like they got it going, never really felt like, except for that one time in bot lane, that they were in the right place to kind of shut down some of these ganks. There was just such a tremendous amount of pressure that was placed on the top side of the map, and you know, Lyra was never there to defend that. Febiven was already shoved in. He was never really there to defend that. And as a result, Someday just got so big and no one had any answers.
It was a great game from the Thieves, and now we're going to send it down to Avli for an interview with the victorious shield bearer in the bottom lane.
Thanks, guys. Afromu, congratulations on that win. This entire split, you've built a fan base, you've silenced the non-believers, and now you're leading 100 Thieves into the playoffs. What does it mean to rep the org?
I wanted to put 100 Thieves on the map this season since they had picked me up, and I'm glad that I could get them to the playoffs and hopefully go to Miami too. Definitely go to Miami, sorry.
Hopefully go to Miami. There you go, have the confidence there. And speaking of confidence, how confident are you and your teammates coming into the next few weeks?
We put in a lot of hard work these past few weeks, and I'm excited to see how playoffs goes for every team. Usually most teams get a playoff buff and stuff like that, but our buff starts now.
Buff starts now. Congratulations on that win again. Wish you the best of luck with that. And for more on the game, let's hear from the State Farm analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Avli. 100 Thieves coming out on top in that battle between third place teams. Jat, you had said draft around Someday around that top lane. Not only do they do that, they play around it as well.
Yeah, and they definitely didn't kill the Cody Sun, which is what Mark wanted them to do.
There
was no action really from Clutch anywhere. It was always 100 Thieves forcing the issue up top.
And the thing about these top lane plays, this first one really well executed, good early roam, everyone level 3. But after that, they've started to not pull these too cleanly. You see Someday waiting a really long time before rupturing, so Solo can actually flash out. That's a pretty guaranteed chain CC to death combo, 0 to death, and they keep dropping the combo. Luckily, Ryu was doing a great job supporting this and able to follow up on these kills, but it showed that there was a lack of execution on really well conceptualized plays.
Yeah, and you can kind of see it continue happening here when they're spending so much time going up here. Here's another one, rupture while he's suppressed. And then you can silence him afterwards, and then Meteos can stun after the E. But, to be fair, like, no one helps Solo after that.
Yeah, where is Lyra on this? They got a couple dragons as a result, but it's like, all right, your top laner's going 0-3. He's losing his turret at like 12 minutes. One Infernal Drake will not offset that, and Lyra was unable to find any plays. Febiven, much the same way. He had tried to follow the roams a little bit, but not a ton of action out of him.
So to put it plainly, 100 Thieves with the right idea, poor execution in some areas definitely could have been cleaner, but on the side of Clutch Gaming, kind of nothing happening. Just a lot of passivity. If anything, we roll to the bot lane soon as 100 Thieves tries to take their advantage there. This is the one opportunity for Clutch Gaming to get back into it.
Yeah, and it's hard to make plays around a Tahm Kench. You can see why here. Hakuho tries to get them out, does not here. And this is where 100 Thieves, again, kind of has the right idea. Look at how long they had a 5v3 before the teleport even begins to be channeled, and then Lyra comes in after they haven't killed Apollo, after they haven't followed down the turret. The rest of Clutch Gaming does collapse to get several kills.
It's not like they were too precious with their summoner spells there.
Absolutely. I mean, they all started walking away and kiting out of the turret before actually killing anyone, and then that ends up in the turret, ending up on Cody's son. He gets chunked out, and finally, Clutch Gaming collapse around this play, and you get to see how 100 Thieves mis-executing results in Clutch Gaming getting back into the game, but they're still not doing anything of their own. So despite that, 100 Thieves just goes right back to making plays.
Right, this just brings them back to even, essentially, when it comes to the gold advantages. So we fast forward to 25 minutes into the game. This is where 100 Thieves finally breaks the game open, finding a fight in the mid lane.
Yeah, and they have a lot of tools to actually make the initiation. If a Rupture lands, if a Seismic Shove lands, if the ultimate from Taliyah funnels them into the right spot. And here, they're on a little choke plate. Seismic Shove and Rupture basically taking up the whole passageway with no summoner spells down because they've been making very rapid plays. Like, I do have to give credit to 100 Thieves for always having the map position to make all of those plays. Those were very rapid plays that they were making for them to work.
From there to Baron to win. 100 Thieves now sitting at 11-6. It is not unreasonable to think that tomorrow against Echo Fox, they could actually be competing for a first-round bye.
And it's coming out of players who we had, you know, over the course of the season been criticizing a little bit. Someday really stepping up. They played completely around him this game to get their early game advantages. And it was Ryu who was the one who was really the X factor there. Meteos and Someday showing a lack of coordination a lot of the time, and Ryu was bailing them out. They wouldn't have got a lot of those plays off if he wasn't playing well.
Yeah, and then Prawley as well, finding a good team composition, I feel like. And then also 100 Thieves having a very good game plan against Clutch. Because we got to see, even when there was about a 3,000 gold lead, there were mid lane, bottom lane support, all had cleanse, a 6,000 health Cho'Gath, and also a really tanky Skarner. Like, Zoe's not going to hit anything.
Right.
Varus isn't going to find any initiations. The fact that Clutch Gaming didn't snowball in the early game gave them no way to win. And 100 Thieves also had the upper hand in the early game. So even though this actually looked a little shaky, this was an incredibly solid win for 100 Thieves.
All right, fair enough. The one thing we didn't really talk about, too, was the draft phase. With 8.5, we expected to see some changes. Swain on the ban table for the first game of the day. We saw the Olaf picked up, not to a ton of success this time around, and Zoe did make her way back into the meta. These are all kind of things we pinpointed. But I think the question will be how many teams have practiced things like the Swain pick and are going to be willing to pull it out here on day one of 8.5.
Exactly, because the team that stuck more standard in the 8.4 meta was 100 Thieves. They looked very
won,
practiced.
Right?
Yeah, they looked great on it. Taliyah is a huge comfort pick for them. The only thing Clutch Gaming had going was like, if Gnar gets big, he can split push, and that got shut down right away. So Clutch really kind of outdrafted a little bit and then really out-executed on it.
And then to put a capper on it, too, right? We talk about Clutch Gaming, we talk about the line, and yes, it's somewhat of a meme and a joke, but in all reality, it continues to almost prove itself to be true, that teams that are competing in the playoff picture are very tough for Clutch to beat. And we see it here, kind of with that passivity and almost a cluelessness around how to win the game.
It's strange because I think the way they play works against the teams that aren't in playoffs. It works really well. It's proven to do so. You're not going to fall behind. The worst teams aren't going to be making those plays against you, and then they're still really good players. I like all the guys on Clutch Gaming. I really like David Lim, their coach, but I think they still need to prove it in the playoffs.
I know you didn't predict Clutch. They didn't win today, Mark.
No,
I mean, come on.
I guess
We heard it from David Lim himself. Right?
That streak's broken.
I didn't believe it.
And the pregame interview streak is broken, of all things.
Well, it's really just about the fact I wanted to beat Deficio.
Oh, I was about to say, more importantly,
we're one up on him.
More importantly, one up on Deficio. So the best he can do at this point is tie you guys at a 4-1 if you get that third game of the day.
Can't beat
Incorrect.
the NA analyst stash.
No, you can. Well, I don't know. You might be able to.
Yeah.
Now, with Clutch Gaming's loss, the possibility of a 6-way tie is now out the window. So we're stepping away when we return. Echo Fox fight for a playoff bye versus FlyQuest. Don't touch that browser. Oh, that's gone.
As soon as we started to like Mark, he just has to go on and do this. It's ridiculous.
I want to change my interview answer.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm now on Team Dog.
Team Dog is the best team.